Sometimes computers and digital media in general can make us adults, especially us older adults, feel a little left behind or maybe uncultured. But there are things happening in a very different space, also things that both adults and youngsters do online, far more importantly, that compromise our safety and security. This morning, our creative parenting experts and tech experts in this space, definitely Nikki Bush, joins us in studio to talk about the importance of being tech savvy online. This is your bread and butter, Nix. This is where you really have carved an incredible path for yourself. So I'm hoping you understand this in a deeper way. I think on the surface of it, we can sense the danger. I mean, there are red flags popping up all over the place. We've spoken about our children's inappropriate behavior online, but where do we stop passing the buck and look at ourselves as adults, as parents, and say, okay, our behavior is setting the wrong kind of example?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one, Graham. So, parents are involved in these WhatsApp groups, whether it's school groups or special interest groups, etc. What we're sharing on those groups is important, and how we share. And the amount of dissing that's going on between parents on school groups.
That's why we have these groups as guys. That's generally why
guys do. They do. And it's all very much, I know, in jest. But I think we have to be careful when those forums get wider. So when it becomes, for example, all the parents in a particular class, or your children go on a tour, a school tour, and the school creates a WhatsApp group so that parents can get updates, and suddenly the parents are dissing the school, they're dissing the teachers, they're dissing each other in a public forum. And if we want our children to behave and have good netiquette online, it actually starts with us. So we have to be those role models. And when we allow our children to have internet-linked smartphones, we need to know that they are ready for what's out there, because not everybody is nice out there online, and you can be both naughty and nice and nasty online. So if you think that bullying in the school playground is bad, just wait until you see what's happening online.
And that there is no teacher to go to, you can't leave the room, you can't be saved by a bigger kid.
Exactly.
This is in your home, in your bedroom, in your most intimate of spaces.
24 hours a day. It's not like when the school gate closes, it stops.
Yeah, and I've got some of my best mates have had to move kids from schools because of stuff that has gone on there, which blows my mind. So when we talk about the safety of our children and how our behavior can compromise that, what are some of the big red flags for you?
So I think it's about using parental control software when they're just setting out, so that we can have a little bit of an idea of what's going on. But more than anything, the safety app you cannot buy is the relationship you have with your children. Children technically should not be on social media under the age of 13, because they cannot handle the kind of bullying, the language, because people tend to try things online that they would never do in the real world. And that's...
There is that, that barrier, that veil that we think protects us.
Exactly, and it doesn't really. And so when your children are starting out on social media with social media accounts, it's a little bit like when they're starting off with a bicycle. You wouldn't stick them on a two-wheeler bicycle without first putting fairy wheels on for a couple of weeks or months, until you're absolutely confident that they've got it waxed and they're not going to land up, cutting their heads open, etc. The same thing goes for social media. You should be running in tandem with them for about at least 6 months, checking how they write their messaging, their posts, what are they sharing, what are they receiving. And that should almost be, I think, a bit of a rite of passage, because how do they know what's appropriate?
I love that. Okay, we're going to talk more about how we can be effective role models in that space, and maybe just kind of reinforce some of those dangers. You've terrified me already. I'm just not ready. I'm not ready. But this is an area where we all have to make sure we are connected, that we are looking at ourselves first before we allow our children into that tech, and especially that social media space.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Now, you'll have to forgive me as a new parent. I'm still reeling a little bit from the start of this conversation. We were speaking about the importance of parents being tech savvy and being role models in that space for our children, on how to be responsible online. I'm actually shaking a little bit. We continue that conversation now with our creative parenting expert, Nikki Bush, who's really, I think, blazed a trail in this space. So thank you so much for doing that. You've chosen to focus on this because it is just so important. Now, I was waiting for all the tech gadgets to come in, and you bought yourself a ball that our crew just can't stop playing with. There's something about having a blown up ball, but why the ball? What's the connection here?
So Graham, the ball is something that I share with kids in my social media digital safety workshops. And this represents a naked selfie. And what I do is I've got 300 kids in a room, and I call up the kids who say they've got the most number of followers on social media, Snapchat, whatever, Instagram. And I call them up and I say, right, I'm going to ask you to do something I hope you would never do. Take a naked selfie. This is the naked selfie, and I want you to post it to all your followers. And they're like 300 kids sitting in the room. Their job is to keep this ball moving. So as soon as I post it, okay, you then pass it on and on and on and on. And my job as the person who posted it is I have a stab of conscience. And I suddenly decide this is not a good idea, I must delete it. Yeah. I have to then go and catch it, find it, and it's difficult. By the time they do get to it, which is not often, it's already touched about 20 hands. And then we say 20 hands times 500 followers each. How many people have seen that naked selfie? Even though you might have caught it and deleted it, it's still out there, and you can't delete it off everybody else's timeline. And it's a big wake-up moment, a big aha for the kids to realize that the minute you post something, you have lost control of the message.
It's terrifying, it really is. And, you know, the whole idea of 6 degrees of separation doesn't exist anymore. It's like 1 degree of separation. Everyone knows everyone else, and it's all out there. We want to then, obviously, I think teach through example is the best way, because the worst thing is, especially with an adolescent child or a young teenager, you tell them no. That for me was like, okay, I'm going to go do it. Yeah. So we have to teach through setting an example. How do we do that?
There's quite an easy one here, and that is, what kind of photographs are you posting of your own children on social media? And often with my own kids, and I don't post a lot on, you know, about my kids, especially if it's not just for family and friends. It's rare that I post anything with pictures of my kids. So get your privacy settings right on your own social media profiles so that you know who's looking at those pictures. But secondly, you need to ask permission from your children, because often my kids will say, like I was getting my boy into varsity res last week, and I was taking a few photos of setting up the room, and he's going, don't post these, don't post these.
I look like a chop, you know? Don't post this.
And so we have this conversation all the time. I'm taking these for the family photo album, not for Facebook. You know, so there are boundaries, and the kind of pictures that you take of your children and post. So you've got this beautiful 14-year-old girl who is wearing this beautiful bikini on the beach, and you post that, and that's great for your own family and friends, but it is not okay for the pedophiles who are out there and who might stalk her, especially if you leave those location settings on your phone. And kids do it, and adults do it. And it means that people can stalk a child back to their home, their school, your holiday home. So there is a chapter in my book, Tech Savvy Parenting, chapter 13, which is written specifically for children. So everything in the book has then been condensed to a very short chapter that is written nice and simply. I really do suggest that every parent gets their children to read that from the age of 11 upwards.
Well, that's the best point to leave it on, because ultimately, as much as you can weigh in and you can push and you can be an example, your child needs to know for themselves their own reality and have their own belief system, and that's going to play out online. That's the bottom line. Thank you so much for everything that you do. This has been a bit of a sobering discussion for me. It's terrified me, but it has got me asking very important questions. So thank you so much for that. And maybe you want to join us online to continue this conversation. Let us know what age you have given your child or your teenager a cell phone. How do you feel about them entering into that big and very unsafe space online?